Welcome back everybody to a new video. Today I thought I would make a video that I've had some requests from, and I get a lot of questions whenever I do my market analysis videos here on YouTube. People asking me how I identify certain levels, how I mark things, what tools or drawing tools do I use on TradingView or Sierra chart sometimes, but mostly we're going to focus on TradingView here, etc. And so I thought I would show you a video where I'm going to start with a completely blank chart, and I'm going to go on a top-down analysis from the higher time frame down to the hourly time frame, and just the process that I use for every market in terms of starting a analysis. Now, this analysis that I make, it's going to be the framework in which then I'm going to execute when I am day trading, because I'm mostly a futures day trader. I take trades that I'll hold usually for between like 5 minutes up to like an hour. Sometimes I will let trades run, but usually I'm just looking for a relatively quick move. But the framework that I have for all the major levels is very important, as those are going to be very significant decision points where I'm going to be paying attention to when I'm drilling down into like a 5-minute chart or a 3,000 tick chart on the ES, or even a 1-minute chart, etc. Okay, so right here, this is the general 8 steps that I take when I do this, and this is what we're going to do now. I start with a blank chart. I'll zoom out into a monthly. I don't really ever use the monthly time frame except just to look at very high time frame general structure. But especially too, if we're like near the end of the month and the beginning of a month, then I'll definitely check it because I want to see how that monthly candle is going to look. Then I will go into a weekly and mark any significant support resistance levels. I go into the daily, do the same thing, mark SR levels. Then I'll put a long-term volume profile from the daily chart that is going to show on the daily and the hourlies. Then I'll drill down into the 4-hour, and I'll mark off again the support resistance levels on the 4-hour chart. Then I'll mark my low volume node zones in the long-term volume profile, and then I'll finally drill down into a 1-hour, and I'm going to refine my levels and also just mark any demand supply block areas, any order blocks, any gaps or significant moves, etc. So the hourly I just use to refine more, and the hourly is definitely the time frame that I will reference the most when I'm day trading. Okay, so I'm over here on a chart of the dollar yen. This is a market that I don't really trade or even track at all, but I thought for this video, instead of just showing you one of the markets that I always use like the SP 500 or NASDAQ, I'm just gonna go and use this Forex chart and just show you how this process is the same, and I apply it to all markets. Okay, so we're starting with a blank chart. We're in the monthly time frame. I don't really mark anything here, but I just want to like check levels. So if I zoom out, you can see that we are near all-time high levels. And since we're up on these levels, I don't really care about any of this because we're so far away. So just by looking at this, I know that I'm pretty much going to be focusing on this recent area right here, because also I update my charts every day, and so it's not really worth it for me to even waste time analyzing things that are very far away from price. So just looking at the monthly right now, I can immediately see that this is going to be a pretty important level right here. You can see a very, very clear level there that I'm going to mark off in the weekly. So let's go into the weekly chart. I'll just leave this here on the side and I'll reference it later. But so on the weekly, I'm going to start marking two things right off the bat. First, I'm going to mark this as an all-time high level. So I actually have a template here that is a black dash line with ATH, and I'm going to lock it so I don't accidentally delete it. I have this to show on every time frame pretty much, from the minutes up to the weekly. And then this definitely is a big level, so I'm going to take my horizontal drawing tool. I also have here, I use this a lot, this is my little toolbar for my most used drawings, but I usually keep it underneath here so you can't really see it there. I'll just put it right there. So I'm going to select the horizontal line, and when I do these levels, I just try to look for the most confluence of hits from either side. I recently released a video last week on the 5 factors that I use when marking off horizontal levels. So definitely check that out, because that is a big part of how I select my levels. But again, right now I'm just visually looking to identify important levels. I have 3 templates for the horizontal line. I have one that goes from the weekly to the hourly. I have a daily hourly. And then I have one that is just for the hourly and the minutes chart for lower time frames. But for this one, I'm going to mark off weekly, daily, hourly, and minutes. And I'm going to lock it. So right off the bat, this is my very first important level. You can see the significance and how precise all the reactions we had from there are. Now, if I zoom out a little bit, I can see that there's another level like that right around here. I would say this is another very important level. Now you can see, I mean, we're very far from price, so it could take probably months or even years to get down here. So, you know, even though this is a very good level, I'm not even going to bother to mark it because we're so far away from it. Okay, so that is the weekly time frame. Let's go down into the daily. Okay. And now that we are on the daily, you can see very important this level. And let's now drill down and see what other levels do I have. Now, since we're around here, like I said, I'm mostly going to focus on this recent price action. I'm not going to go that far back. So if I go here, well, I can see down here, there's a good level here. Right around here, and I'm gonna grab the daily hourly template and just mark it off. Now the reason that I do this template for different time frames is because if I start putting a bunch of lines, you know, everywhere that are going to show on all time frames, if I zoom out on a higher time frame, I'm going to have a mess with lines everywhere, and that's not what I want. I want, when I'm on a higher time frame, I just want to have the more macro levels, and as I go down into into smaller time frames, then I want to get more amounts of levels in there. Okay, now with these levels, you know, just a little adjustment can make, like for example right here, you can see we're not touching over here, but we are touching here. But then if I take this off and I say, okay, I want this to touch this swing high, now I'm not touching here. So, you know, there's going to be very slight differences, But in the end, you know, it's very close, and I'm just looking for the most confluence and the levels that have the most amount of hits. Like this one here, you know, I have very precise hit here. This one we exceeded it but still held. This one was almost a perfect touch. This one was two very good touches. Very good touch, very good touch. So you can see the significance of this level here. And then going into more recent price action, I see we got a good level right around this area here, I would say. That's a good one there. We had the move up, resistance, then we broke out. Then here we had important support, and we are in a, you know, close to where recently price is. So how recent the tests are is also a significant factor, okay? And now that I'm on the daily, I'm going to apply a volume profile. Now with the volume profile, the one I like to use the most is the anchored volume profile, because I can put it on and it's going to stay on the right side of my chart. I can use the fixed range as well. And let's say, you know, if I put it from, you know, here to here, I can have that there, or I can select my anchored and it would go there. So, you know, it's a matter of preference. Here I can make this a little bit further out, let's say 50. So you can see it's pretty much the same profile. It's just a matter of if you want to have it on the left or the right. In general, I like to have it on the right, so that way I don't have anything on top or, like, you know, behind the candlesticks distracting me. And the settings that I use on this is I always just put number of rows, and I put 2000. I just put a high number to get the most definition. Total volumes, 68% value area. And I don't really mark off the value area, point of control and stuff. I don't really put that on the long-term volume profiles. I do have them in my session profiles when I have my lower time frames, but I don't apply it into the big long-term profiles, because when I look at these ones, what I care about is just to identify high volume nodes and areas where the volume's cut off, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit, how I'm going to go and mark off those areas. Okay, so I think that's pretty much it for the daily time frame. There's probably a level here, but I'm going to mark it off on the hourly when it's a little bit more defined there. Okay, so now I'm going to go into the 4-hour chart. Now remember, with TradingView, this is an annoying thing they have. You can see my profile disappeared. You got to zoom out until where you anchored your profile. If I click here, you can see this little dot here that indicates that the profile is at this point. And here I can grab this and I can move it back and forth if I want, but I'm just going to keep it right at this high here. So I'm pretty much catching this rotation down and this rotation up in this profile, which is pretty much more than I need. And especially since we're in a all-time high area, in reality, this is the most significant profile that I'm going to be paying attention to now. So let's lock the profile so it doesn't move out of place by accident. And let's zoom in. And now for the hourly levels, I just look to mark off recent price action. I don't really like to go too much in the past when I'm marking my hourlies. Let me adjust this level. That's the all-time high. Okay, so hourly levels. Let's grab the horizontal tool. Right around here, you can see that this area here, and I'm going to get my hourly and minute template, which is a gray line. Okay, and if I zoom in, you can see this level that I selected was here. We had a deviation, but then we have very significant resistance at that level. So that is an important level to track. Then moving down below. And again, you're going to see that a lot of these levels that I visually mark are going to coincide with edges or areas with low volumes on the profile, which is what we identify as areas of support and resistance. So I always use that as a confluence. Down below here, this looks like a good level right here. You can see we had big support. So now this is going to be an important reference if we move down, and you can see very low volumes, an edge there as well. Okay, so that is the next hourly. And then below that, zooming out here a little more, I think definitely these lows are significant. You can see that they're pretty well matched together. So that would be the other one right here. You can see two very precise touches exactly at this level. We have a over under pattern here as well. Left shoulder, head, and then the right shoulder here. So, I think that is enough for now with the hourly levels, because again, since we're at all-time high areas, I don't really care about everything here because we're very far away. If we come down into this level, then I'll start, analyzing here, and you can see there's a very good level there. I mean, I'm just gonna mark it off just because it's like a very good level here. You can see big resistance and then very significant support here. Okay, so I have my levels, and now if I zoom out, if I go into the daily, you can see that all the gray levels are not showing here. If I go into the weekly, I only have the one level right here. So you can see how as I drill down in time frames, I get more and more levels coming up here. Okay, now the next step in this, let me put this on the hourly as well. The next step is I'm going to mark my low volume node areas. Okay, so for that, I'm going to expand this. I'm on the 4-hour time frame. I can do this on the hourly too, but the 4-hour I think is a good balance between the daily and the hourly. I sometimes mark them on the daily too, these zones, but then the daily gets a little bit messy. So I like to mark it just on the hourlies. Okay, and for this, I use my rectangle tool, and I have some templates as well preset. So right here off the bat, you can see we have this high volume node right over here, and we have huge resistance. So I'm gonna mark off this edge right here in red. And this, I only have it to show on the hourlies and on the minute time frames. So that's one. Then I think we can put another one here near the all-time highs, where you can see we had this big spike, but then we had this two big spikes and resistance here. So I'll mark that off there. And then that's pretty much the only low volume node resistance areas, because you can see that everything below us price is going to be right here. So what I like to do is All the low volume areas above price, I put in red. Everything below, I put in green, just to indicate that this is where I expect resistance. This is where I expect support. If I flip them, if this, if I have a strong close here, then I'll turn this green, because then I expect support if I come back into this level, for example. And then every day, at the end of the day, I adjust them, because obviously as new price action develops and more volumes and action and movement comes in, these profiles are going to start changing. And now let's just start marking off support areas. Now, do I mark every single, like these little things here and everything? No. I mostly focus on the most significant levels. And remember, this is the hourly, but I'm going to drill down into the 5 minute or the 1 minute, or, well, I don't have tick charts here, but if I was in Sierra chart, I would drill down into tick charts as well. So all these levels, even though they look like they're very close together on the hourly, when you're looking at this on a lower time frame, they're not going to be as close together. So that's one, then another one right here. And if you look back, you can see all these low volume node areas coincide with important support and resistance. Like you can see all these areas right here. Some of them, like this one, it got chopped around here, but before that, you can see that we had very precise levels, and that's why this formed like that, okay? So again, all I'm doing is making a roadmap of the areas where I'm going to be paying attention most when I am day trading on the lower time frames. We got that one there. And let's mark off this one, and that's it. Again, I don't want to go down here, even though these ones are important, but we're very far away, so I'm not going to bother marking off anything too far, okay? So that is the 4 hour, and now to finish off, let's go into the 1 hour and refine levels and mark important levels for the short term. Okay, so go into the hourly. Again, I need to zoom out and move until the start of my profile shows, and then I can come back up. Over here, I can see there's a little bit of a trend line here forming. So I'm going to grab my trend line tool and just mark this off. You can see we did close through, trade through this on the third touch, but overall it held. I'm just going to have it hourly minutes. So I'm going to mark off that trend line, 1, 2, 3 touches now. So if we come back for a fourth, there's less chance now that we're going to be holding it. But I'm going to mark it off since that's an important level of support. Then I do like to identify broken swing levels. And you can see, for example, here, this has been a pretty significant area. So I like to just take the rectangle and I just use a block drawing. So for example, this, you can see this has been a pretty significant area right over here. I'm going to take off the border and just make this a little darker. So you can see this has been an important area right here. We came up, holding structure, and then we had this breakdown in structure. We came back into this broken swing low, and so far as getting resistance, but then I marked this off because if we do something like this, I would expect support, and then we're looking at this highs, etc. So I marked that off. So right now on the hourly, I'm just, looking to refine and mark off important levels. You can see also similarly here, we have this whole order block here. We had this impulsive move. We broke structure to the upside. We came back on a pullback. We can even just put a Fibonacci just to measure. You can see right here into the optimal entry area between 6180 and what I like to use the 75% into the gap fill here. So this is a pretty important level as well. Well, we've already tested it. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. Like, this is how I would leave the chart. And now with this, I am ready to then, start executing on the lower time frames. In this case, I would go into a 5-minute chart. And then I would put in my session volume profiles. So let me bring this up. I have this one on futures hours actually. So I need to adjust this. To just all hours. Okay, so there, for example, this is on the 5-minute chart. I have my session volume profile. So in Forex, this will be from 5 p.m. Eastern time until the next 5 p.m. Eastern time, 24-hour sessions. And I have my overall major levels here. Again, the gray hourlies. Then I have the dailies and then the weeklies right over here. And this just helps me make up the whole roadmap for trading. So for example, you can see right here, this was a news-driven event today because we had the CPI and then FOMC in the US. So obviously that affected the dollar and all the markets in general. But then, I see, okay, I have a high volume node here, a little node here, very low volumes on this move. So now, if I do something like this, then I'm looking for a retest. First area I'm looking at now then would be this lows right over here. So this is my first target right there. You can see over here, this is a high volume node that we marked with the low volume node resistance support. And you can see how we came into this node, tested the bottom, and now we're pushing up. Okay. And so that's pretty much how I come up with the entire roadmaps of what I use when I am getting my charts all annotated and ready to go and do my analysis. Okay, so I hope this video has been insightful and useful. This is the exact process that I use to analyze all my markets and get all my levels and zones of interests ready. Obviously, there's a big difference, or not there's two separate things in trading. There's analysis and there's execution. So you can have your charts marked off the best way that you can, but you need to learn to execute off of those levels as well. Just because you mark off really good levels doesn't guarantee you're going to execute well off of them. So that's two things that you need to develop, but this is the framework for my analysis. And then from there, I use all my strategies of, order flow tools. I use volume profile, I use delta, footprint charts, price action patterns, etc., in order to then go off on my executions. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the video. Thank you all for tuning in. Hope you're having a great week, and I'll see you in the next one.